Global nutrition policy operates on a paradox. Governments make sweeping commitments to eradicate malnutrition, yet actual resources rarely reach communities most in need. The failure is rarely a lack of intention, it is a lack of mechanics. An empty budget line cannot buy food, and voluntary guidelines printed on paper cannot secure a commercial supply chain. The Cascade Initiative was designed specifically to solve this disconnect, to build the missing bridge between national capitals and local villages. This diagram shows Cascade's 2024 strategy. The program moved past individual projects to focus on the specific administrative and legal structures that govern how nutrition is managed and funded. This architecture operates at 3 specific altitudes: enacting apex policies, unlocking nutrition financing, and decentralizing governance. True advocacy goes beyond raising awareness. It requires building a rigid pipeline that forces high-level political will to cascade directly into localized, measurable impact. We start at the highest administrative level, the national government. The first required step is securing a long-term, multi-sectoral legal mandate capable of outlasting standard election cycles. This chart outlines Benin's legislative action. In 2024, the Council of Ministers adopted the updated National Food and Nutrition Policy, locking in accountability through 2033. However, a policy is insufficient if private entities producing food remain unregulated and disconnected from public health goals. To bridge the gap between government policy and private enterprise, Cascade launched and coordinated the Scaling Up Nutrition Business Network. Through this network, they secured formal commitments from 21 major agri-food businesses, legally tethering private manufacturing directly to the government's new nutrition targets. An apex policy acts as a firm ceiling, forcing both public ministries and private corporations to operate under a single unified framework. Moving down to the regional level, the most robust national law remains ineffective if the capital allocated to fund it is frozen. This breakdown highlights a recent crisis in the Amhara region of Ethiopia. 172 million Ethiopian birr, approximately 2.8 million euros, was allocated for regional nutrition on paper, but stalled entirely by administrative bottlenecks. Cascade hosted a review mechanism, forcing finance officials and technical committees to resolve blockages. Clearing this red tape resulted in the immediate release of funds, allowing instant deployment of water access and food distribution in highly vulnerable areas. The greatest threat to development is often a lack of systemic communication. Bridging accountants to health workers translates theoretical capital into life-saving action. Finally, we reach the hyperlocal administrative tier. National goals must ultimately translate into municipal laws and county budgets to reach the individual citizen. This chart exposes a systemic flaw in Kenya, a massive gap between health budget allocation and actual expenditure. Using this data, Cascade built investment cases, lobbying Nyandarua and Nakuru counties to adopt legally codified nutrition action plans, enforcing systematic tracking. This lack of enforcement extended to Nairobi, where commercial food quality was governed by voluntary suggestions. Targeted lobbying transformed these into the mandatory Food Safety and Fortification Bill, securing strict oversight in Kenya's largest consumer market. This flowchart illustrates how localized accountability is being enforced in Benin through municipal data, specifically using the SISAN scorecard tool. 77 communes must now quantitatively evaluate their exact food security status through this tool before they are allowed to draw up capital expenditure plans. Removing guesswork from municipal planning and replacing it with mandated data cements nutrition as an unavoidable local expenditure. Reviewing the totality of Cascade's 2024 impact, we see disconnected regions across the continent now bound by the same logic of accountability. They achieved 3 distinct victories: legally binding private industry to national goals, unblocking frozen capital, and mandating localized, data-driven budgets. Integrating these mechanisms into the legal and fiscal framework of the state ensures the system functions reliably even after external aid programs end. A functional food system requires an unbroken chain of accountability, flowing flawlessly from the highest parliament all the way down to the local farm. When nations invest in this structural architecture, high-level political will reaches the local level as a tangible, lasting resource for every citizen.